Hi, Faye. Hi, Natalie. How are you today? Not sure if you can hear me.
Hello. Not too bad, not too bad. How about you?
Doing good. It is really sunny, if you can't tell.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think the sun is just barely starting to set over here
Yeah.
where I'm at, so but
Yeah, it stays up until dude, what is the sunset? Like yeah, it's like past 9. It's pretty late. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Hi, Faye. I think you're having an audio connection thing that you're working on, it seems. Or at least I don't see the little microphone. Let us know if we can help. Let's see. Like all these things that logged me out for whatever. I went on vacation for a week, and now like all of these things are logged out.
no, it's always the worst.
Yeah. Let's see. I wanted to pull up our notes. There it is. Copy. I have two. I've not two monitors. A lot of people have two monitors. I have two computers side by side. Because I find like if I'm doing something really taxing on one, I can kind of flip to the other, and it's real sharp and fast.
Nice.
Let's see. The worst culprit is always the web browser. Let's see. All right. Um, okay. I think we're getting our ducks in order. I know there were a few other folks who said that they were going to come. I don't know if
Yay, there I am. Sorry.
hey, no worries. Nice to see you. I'm like flipping between screens here. It's as sunny there as it is here, it seems.
Yeah.
Oh, Faye, it looks like you actually do have audio now. I see the little flashy thing.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I
goodness.
wait, who are you talking to?
Faye.
Did I do it? Is it success?
It
Did I do a
is.
Yeah.
success?
You did it.
Goodness. I
Yeah,
can go
and your
sideways too.
and your by a tree.
Yes.
Yes, this is my friend
It's not an artificial
holding.
backdrop.
No, it's a real tree. It's a real tree. I'm in my partner's parents' place with my
Nice.
dog because he likes to be in the backyard and he won't sit here in the backyard if I'm not out here with him. So I was like, well, I know what I can do for the next couple hours while you're laying there in the grass.
Yeah, they're nice, faithful companions like that. Well, it's good to see you. I'm gonna post that
Yeah,
link there.
likewise. I'm really glad that the logistics of my life allowed me to um, make it today.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, I think that Amy June and Matthew Saunders are also supposed to join. Um,
Yeah, hopefully.
maybe I should tag them, get them going. Maybe also, I think Nora said that she was gonna join.
Sometimes life has other plans.
Yeah, it does. Sorry if you hear barking. It's our neighbors have a couple of friends over.
A security system.
Yeah, keeping
They have a
keeping the lake
really,
safe.
yeah, yeah, could be criminals.
Yeah, especially right here in Hinder Harbor.
Mm.
There's actually one guy, only one guy, and everybody knows him by his first name. He's the only guy that ever like robs people or breaks into storage units.
And we all know him. We're
Yeah,
like,
we
look, we
we all
just
know
stop
him.
that because we keep watching you. We know who's doing it.
Yep.
Like
Oh, that was Kyle
something goes
again.
missing, we're just gonna come knock on your door. Like,
So I put together a few things for today. Um, we can get started in a bit, see if a few other folks join, but I did put some stuff in our notes. Um, maybe just some prompts to see where this takes us. I'm not trying to make a formal discussion or anything, but I did put a disclaimer in there too, um, about us not being medical or legal professionals. But this is more
oh,
about us, trying to help each other and see if we can make improvements to the workplace or our lives in regards to, neurodiversity and inclusion. And as we're kind of getting into this, I think maybe a warm up also is there's a lot of folks in our community that are very experienced with this.
Hmm.
But I think I like the representation of the sunflower, that idea of hidden disabilities, this being one of those key examples. Not the only one, but certainly an example of one. So I think we can maybe key off of that when we're ready and have a few more folks here. But while we're waiting, how's everybody doing? Summer
Good.
starting good?
Yeah. I mean,
starting,
amidst all the
starting.
chaos in America, it's going okay personally.
Not
I
presently being
mean,
bombed, so that's a plus.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, 2025. We've moved the bar
Yeah, the
to
bar is still drawing
didn't get
breath.
dismembered today. Doing
yeah.
great. Yeah,
Not de-
emotionally, physically, mentally didn't get dismembered.
not deported
Yeah.
yet. Not in some
I
gulag
think
somewhere.
this bill that the Senate or the House is supposed to vote on it is the most anxiety ridden and also because there's like so much information and a lot of it's incorrect about what it is.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
you need like 3 days to go through and read it yourself,
Uh,
to actually know what it's doing.
Propaganda versus
There's
information.
yeah, there's big
Did they
takeaways that are obvious what they're doing, but there's other things, that you have to read it to find it.
I
did
mean,
they
they're
change the name?
supposedly, I don't know what they
I don't
changed it
know.
to though.
It's something more professional, I think was the idea.
No.
So it's no
Yeah.
Um,
longer the Better Business Bureau. It's something else now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too.
Soon they're going to start calling things DEI that aren't DEI just to confuse every
Right.
acronym. NASA's not going to be NASA.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is ridiculously clever, and I really hope that nobody gets that clever.
No.
administration.
I'm going to cease the idea mill right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Stop giving them ideas because that's a good one, and it doesn't work in our favor.
No, no. We can reclaim terms, but when they're claiming them actively against us, that's not so good.
Yeah, I mean, they're already calling things DEI that aren't necessarily just like for a reason to destroy it or something, but also like um I don't know where my brain is going with that, but like like um the difference between like being political and moral kind of thing. They're really trying to make all this area gray to because most Americans don't really pay attention to anything except what they're told.
Yeah, it's the outrage bait, all
Mm.
of that. Yeah. Live on your emotions. Don't make value-based decisions. Just follow what we're telling you to do because we know best.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that. Well, I think this is also a really good example of how the end of the day can really bring all of our cognitive fatigue to the table.
It's allowed.
Yeah.
Also, the beginning of the day, and I find sometimes in the middle, and by sometimes I mean most of the time.
Sometime, all the time.
Yeah. So this is actually a good segue. It's an interesting thing that is very much on topic. I was just talking to um, someone else who's visiting family at the same time. She's my partner's brother's fiance. And she also works remotely in tech. And we were having a conversation about how cognitive overload and constant context switching has just become the norm in
Yeah.
text and in tech rather. And in some ways, my job is great. Like I have to have my head in a whole bunch of different projects all at once. I support a bunch of different people and I think about problems and I solve them by being able to think about it from the perspective of different people and the needs of different cultures and teams and specializations and time zones and all of the different things. And if you have ADHD, that's like a candy store. It is so fun to get to sit there and think about everything all at once and have people be happy about that. But then you get to a point where it almost becomes a norm. Like Slack has empowered us to track. I have like 77 project and working group channels and different like feeds of information and Slack bots. And it's just like all of the things. And it's empowered me to just have this incredibly robust feed of data just hitting me in my brain meats all the time. And it's just become the norm for everything for all of us, and it's exhausting, and then it becomes very difficult. But I forget what my original point was, but that it came in through my ADHD brain, and I started talking about it.
That's
Slack. I'm
part of
tired.
it.
How tired we are. Yeah. Sorry, Natalie. I didn't.
Oh no, I was just gonna say cognitive overload.
Yeah.
Just that's a rough one.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
another thing that I have that special type of ADHD, which is called inattentive ADHD.
Too.
And there are different flavors, and it's fun like that. But I could be sitting there completely still, and people think that my mind is like a blank chalkboard, and it is the opposite. It's so loud that sometimes the peace and quiet actually helps the loud not be so unbearable. But then other people start talking, and then the loud gets confusing.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
that's I think the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Communication,
interesting.
I think is probably one of those big challenges that we all face. Everybody faces challenges with communication. But I think to your point, Faye, this idea of multitasking, like partitioning your brain space, multitasking, I believe very firmly that multitasking is a myth. Not like I can press the accelerator pedal and I can turn the wheel sort of multitasking. I mean, like your attention is being on multiple things. Well, it's not. It's actually really poorly on multiple things. You're actually rapidly context switching, and nothing really has your full attention, appropriate and responsible attention, especially if you're being paid for that attention.
Mhm.
So no one's ever getting 100% of your effort. So that's why I
Mhm.
like serializing. And I think that's actually a good practice for everyone, whether you're neurospicy or not, is actually serializing things. So you time box things, you do the thing. If something interrupts you, which can be very frustrating, if something interrupts you, you basically have to reset that timer sometimes.
Yep.
Um,
Mm. I like
but
to make sure that I have everything that I need for a
mhm,
specific task in one place. So all of my meetings that I have, all of my different like project meetings and product planning and, you know, engineering solutions initiative, whatever it is, I create a dashboard in Jira that has all of the different widgets of
mhm.
the different things that we might want to talk about or that we need to talk about that's on the agenda. So that all you have to do is join the meeting and then click the link, and then all of the information for that meeting is right there. And in that way, anytime that you can like consolidate and group, like I group the Slack channels that are relevant for a certain task, like I run estimations once a week. All of the channels that I need to use for estimations are grouped in a bucket in Slack, and in that way you can reduce the amount of like clicking and getting lost and having to like remember why.
Oh yeah,
Like, where
it's
are we going?
a good
And
way to be organized. Do
yeah,
you, this seems like a tangent. It's not. It's related to what you're saying.
yeah, bring
Do
it.
you know what skeuomorphic design is?
No, but it sounds beautifully nerdy and I am so keen.
Okay, it's really fun. So when the iPad came out, they wanted people to have a sense of the Notepad app. So they used the design of a legal pad to make it feel familiar.
Oh yeah, okay, like an interface metaphor.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So in the digital world, a lot of times when you're coming to a meeting or getting started with a project task or, otherwise trying to focus on something, it's almost like you're describing the skeuomorphic version of going to a meeting with a folder that has all your papers, and then you can lay out your papers, and that tells you everything that you need to know to contribute your part to that meeting. You froze.
Mhm. Except the papers get updated automatically.
Yeah, yeah. In the digital world, it's kind of nice like that, but it's still this kind of skeuomorphic thing. If we're looking at like, I don't know, before technology, when people went to meetings, this idea that you would collect your thoughts, you would come prepared. Well, one would hope that you would come prepared to a meeting with whatever documentation and information that you would need right there in front of you. But
Mm.
I think that's also you're pulling it back to what you were saying before. In our current world, especially our digital world, we're expected to be so partitioned with our attention. And I feel like that's what people think attention deficit disorder is this distractions and impulsivity. And that's not quite it. It's not just saying, hey, ooh, shiny, there's a squirrel. I must be ADHD. It's a much more complex thing. And I think we know that. But I think, you know, neurotypical people don't really understand that that's not what ADHD is. It's not the suffering that's actually occurring.
Mm. Mm.
There were a few tangents there.
What? Never.
Uh,
We
but
would never.
but that's actually one of the points that I also wanted to bring up was the idea of communication. Um, at least I've experienced tremendous challenges throughout my life, thinking that I'm communicating very clearly, concisely, but a lot of that math is actually happening in my head, and I didn't actually ever speak it. So people don't have the same context that I do, and they have to kind of catch up to where I am, and then I get misunderstood by someone, or somebody gets offended by something that I'm saying because they don't understand what I actually mean. Communication is like, here's some words. I hope they mean what I'm thinking, but they probably don't.
Yeah. And then the kicker is that you can spend a lot of time being really careful about what you write. And then you're like, okay, this is definitely really clear. And then sometimes the other people actually just don't read it carefully or properly, and they misinterpret it, even though it actually says quite clearly
Mhm.
the thing that you're trying to say. And then you're like, what's wrong with me?
And you may
Why
even
can't I
anticipate their
write?
potential confusion and try to
Mhm.
pack that information in there. But there's this inverse relationship between the amount of information you provide and people's ability to understand it.
Yeah.
I
That's
I
where
have
I
a
Small
trip
data
up.
packets.
I have a problem with that in the sense of when I'm explaining something to somebody, I already expect them somehow to be on the same page, like some super deductive reasoning that because I know what's going on, but I'll say like
But it's
if I'm
so
talking
easy.
about if I'm talking about my wife, I'll say like me and her or something, and in my head, I'm like, obviously, if I'm saying me and her, that means I'm talking about my wife in this context because it wouldn't be like my daughter and everything. And my brain does all these fancy things, and I forget that other people aren't in my head, and there's like this super deductive reasoning ESP doesn't exist,
No.
and I need to stop. And I get frustrated because I'm like, how could you not get that? It's obvious, like I just put up a new toilet paper roll, and I was working on it, and I came out and I told my wife, I said, yeah, we need to move that thing like an inch back, and she's like, what thing? And in my head, I'm thinking, what have I been doing all night?
What do you think I've
Obviously,
been doing in
that's
the
the
bathroom
thing.
for the last 2 hours?
Yeah,
Don't
but
answer
like
that.
normal people aren't like that. And even if somebody said that to me, like some of my friends, I might get it and be like, oh yeah, go ahead. I know what they're. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's weird, but
And,
I always
and
have to remind
the,
myself.
the other part of this is that it's entirely possible that part of the reason why there isn't space in that person's brain to do the deductive reasoning that seems so reasonable to you is because their head has 27 different things happening in it,
Yeah,
and there just actually isn't space.
yeah,
Well, one compromise I've started to make with myself over the past couple of years is um, maybe an affirmation. I don't know, something. When I arrive at a conversation, I think somebody is on the same page as me, and we're just
Mhm.
sharing information. There's a request being made, or some sort of direction, something along those lines. But what I need to remind myself is I need to be fair to this person because it took me X amount of time to get to where I am, and they're just starting from point zero. They're going to need some time to get even close to where I currently am, especially if it's something that I've been thinking about for a month.
yeah.
um, so I'm going to go ahead and assume after 25 minutes that nobody else is going to join, or they can't join, or they're joining late. So the question for all of you is how do we support people with DEIA issues? So that could include government and private companies. How can we help with hiring and reduce discrimination as it pertains to whether it's neurodiversity or just in general inclusion?
I would say that is a wildly broad question,
All right, and go.
and maybe
You
maybe
have
we could dial it in
five
and pick
minutes.
one thing like hiring and interview processes is a good one, because a lot of the things that we can do to make things feel more accessible for somebody who has ADHD is actually some of the same things that we need to do for people who have other marginalized identities, even the very common one of being female. Um, and one example that comes to mind is something that we do is we
Uh-oh.
I'm biting my nails. I'm waiting. It's a cliffhanger. Hi, Pavlos. Faye was in the middle of a thought, and then her feed cut out.
My internet.
Uh, you're better.
Oh.
It's been repaired.
Oh dear.
We can hear you now. Whatever you're doing, keep doing that. No, it's not you. That better? Bueller? Well, wow, fake. It's reestablished.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
I don't know. I don't know how far we got. Something about the job descriptions. I think it's really important not to stack it too much because for different reasons, people with ADHD or other marginalized identities might not apply if they feel like they don't have everything on the list.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so keeping it small and then letting people bring themselves to the table and talk about the skills that they do have could be, I'm not saying it is a perfect solution, but it could be one way of resolving that or improving that. I'm gonna try putting my camera on.
So better job descriptions. I think that makes sense. But Faye, you're triggering me to think of something that's kind of like, it's a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
Also coaching for people who have autism and ADHD to understand how to read job descriptions and understand what might be a good fit for them.
Totally. Yeah. What resources do we have for people to navigate job descriptions that may be written for a neurotypical person and be able to engage with that in a more equitable way? That is, I don't have an answer for that.
I mean,
But
even
I'm
if
very
you're
interested.
fully qualified for everything that it says on the list, even that imposter syndrome can kick in, even for the neurotypical person.
Yeah.
So it's just amplified that much more when you start having that self-doubt or it's just one word just seems out of place.
Mm.
You also don't want to waste your time applying for tons and tons of jobs that actually aren't a good fit.
I feel like someone once told me that one thing, like, because I had always been, the type of person that if I read a job description, oh, like I have to meet like all of, what they're asking. And I remember talking with like one of my good friends about it like a number of years back, and she had brought up about how one of her kind of like rules of thumb was like, I feel like she said that, if she were applying somewhere and she felt like she met like 2/3 of the qualifications that they were asking for, then she would feel comfortable, still applying for it. Um, something to that effect. Which, that really kind of changed how I had, you know, started going about applying, after that point, because I thought that, oh, well, if the description is asking for these things, of course they want all of these things. It never occurred to me like, you know, well, if there are some things I don't quite meet and, they aren't saying like, you must have this, because there are some job descriptions that might have, such and such is required, then, hey, why not throw my hat into the ring?
And at least from my perspective, not only having applied for tons and tons of jobs in my career, and been a hiring manager, but also from the perspective of sales, I like to think of a sales funnel. You have cold leads, which
Mhm.
for every 100 cold leads, you might have 10 warm leads. And then from those 10 warm leads, you might have one close. If you're lucky. I mean, this is really rough math here. But if we look at job applications, it's the same thing. If you're just going to a job board and posting, those are cold leads. You don't know anyone. So the way to overcome that 100 to 1 number is to skip the cold lead when you can. So get referrals. If you know somebody in the hiring department, if you know the manager who's looking for that position, if you can get a referral, that is a lot better use of your time than just cold applications. Because a lot of times you have to really nail a cover letter, you have to groom an email, you have to fill out the paperwork, and you have to try to stand out amongst a herd of potential candidates. So to overcome that, if you get a referral, that can mean a world of difference. Plus, you can navigate the things that are soft requirements versus rigid requirements. And sometimes they'll put things that aren't real requirements in a job description. It's like beyond a nice to have. It's just such a fringe thing. Or they won't put it in the job description at all that you need to know maybe a piece of software or have some experience. So knowing a person really makes a difference. So aside from coaches, recruiters can really help, but networking, like getting out there and networking.
I'm going to say something that might be controversial. In the job interview process, and I know that this is an incredibly privileged thing to say, so I'm just going to acknowledge that. In the job interview process, I also think that it is really important as the interviewee, not just to be showing up and trying to demonstrate why you are a great candidate, but you are actually also interviewing them. Why are you a good fit for me? Why do I want to work for you? And what kind of an environment have you gone out of your way to create so that I'm going to be able to thrive and do my best work? Because that's actually what I want to do. I'm here. I don't just want a paycheck. Like, I don't think I don't know any Drupal developers who are just in it for the paycheck, right? We're all really passionate about problem solving and we like to be challenged. It's kind of part of our culture. And so to show up to an interview like, hey, why do I deserve this paycheck? It's like, well, no. Why is your team the right one for me? And how can you make it so that I can do my best work? And I know that's so hard to say because if you are really hurting for a job, it's hard. Exactly. But I think the tricky part is that it actually changes the way that you show up, and it changes your confidence, or like the perception of confidence. And when you are a marginalized person and you are used to being kicked over and over and over, it's really hard to show up to a job interview and have that sort of really confident attitude of like, why should I want to work with you? And that's not quite what I'm saying. There's a balance. There has to be a balance. But in showing up with that attitude, I do think that it can help provide a sort of like confidence. It shows that like you're not just there to just collect your paycheck and get out the door. Like you actually want to show up and you actually want to be part of the team. And you want to, engage in a healthy way. Controversy, disagreements, and go.
I think it's great. I feel like it's really important to do that because I think it also kind of helps you understand like, well, is this place even a good fit for me? Do I want to actually work with them now that, I'm getting, a bit closer of like a firsthand sort of interaction with this place versus, maybe what you've read online or, what you've, heard, through word of mouth or whatnot. The only challenge that I see is that I know for me, like as someone who's socially awkward, someone like me would probably need extra coaching on like how to actually go about feeling empowered to do that, because it's not something that you're taught like when you're really young, especially like if you are surrounded by people who kind of convey that, oh, well, you're the one who's seeking the job, so you should be kind of, be more willing to, so to speak, like uh allow yourself to be molded into whatever they need you to be or whatnot, you know?
Mm, yeah. Well, that's what they teach you in school, right?
Hmm.
In like high school, when you're going through your resume, they're like, you got to show up and you got to wear the t-shirt, you got to wear the dress shirt rather, and you got to look the part and do all the things. And these are the things that are going to make you look good. And they don't really coach you on like, hey, what are you really good at? How do we make your strengths shine? Like nobody sits down, and has that conversation with you. So
They
this is a
don't
great segue
coach
to
you
my
about that
question.
or negotiating or, anything like that. I feel like, at least for me
Mm,
growing up, it was very much a, uh, you're kind of at the whims of, whoever you're applying to, or whoever your employer is. You know.
yeah. So what are the questions? What are the types of questions that we could ask that, you don't want to come across as a narcissist, obviously, but
Mhm.
um, what are the types of questions that you can ask in an interview that help you kind of gauge, is this actually a good fit? And also help you show up with a sense of that like confidence.
You could ask them if they party.
And if they say yes, then you leave or you don't leave.
I don't know. It depends on if you like to party too. Well,
Depends
Do
on
you
the
party
date,
and do
right?
you
it depends on the
require that
party.
I party with you? Because if partying is a requirement of this
Oh
job,
God.
then I'm out. No boat parties, please. No
Well,
required
what's
boat
the
party.
this company is one big family. That myth. Um,
Oh.
well,
Mhm.
I think along I put body doubling in there, and maybe I'm kind of slightly misrepresenting body doubling, but what I really mean is I've had a lot of mentors and advocates throughout my career who have helped me navigate job opportunities. And they're not sitting there beside me as I'm going through an interview or even necessarily going through job posts. But there's an element of that that is potentially possible where if you're just not sure of how to navigate those things, finding someone to actually help you and sit with you for maybe an hour, time box it, it's not indefinite. You are asking somebody for a favor. But I think as we network and build our social relationships, there are people who are willing to have a non transactional relationship, one that is just simply your support system. They don't even need to know your field that well to be a good ally and advocate through a job seeking process, for them to at least help you rationalize something that is typically an otherwise very vulnerable emotional place to be. And I think to Pavlov's point earlier, you've got a mortgage or bills to pay a lot of times. And what that can do is it can actually twist you into this desperate monster that no one wants to hire because you're not representing yourself in your best form. So I think having that ally can really kind of talk you back into that form a little bit and prep you. And that's where, if you are going to do an interview, they can't be there with you, but you can at least practice with them, cover some of the basics. And if you don't have that person, well, I, I hate to be the biggest advocate for AI, but AI could potentially help you rehearse some things and navigate some things and kind of take that out of your head and try to navigate it with another virtual brain.
I found that with AI, it helps to check its answers against itself. Um, like one of the ways in AI, you have this slight tangent. You have multiple agents that will sort of fact check each other to prevent hallucination. But if you're just using like basic out of the box chat GPT, you can say like, hey, what are some possible answers or questions that I could ask in a job interview? And then you could ask it like, how could asking these questions, are these good questions? In what way are these good questions? And can they go wrong? And so I was writing a letter for someone and I was like, hey, can you give me some example text for this letter? And then I was like, I don't know about this. So I started asking it like, how will this make, what kind of an impression will this paragraph leave on the reader? And it actually ripped it apart and said that it's actually not a good paragraph and it would make you look quite bad. And I was like, ChatGPT, it's not helping.
Sometimes I
AI,
find that
AI tools are,
I think this idea of a prompt engineer is also quite fascinating. But
yeah,
sometimes I
it's a
will
skill.
say to AI at the very beginning this preamble of, "You are this type of person, so talk to me in this way." So in this case, you can say,
Mm,
I'm an you're an expert in Drupal development and hiring, and you're going to talk to me as if you're my biggest advocate, and here's what I'm trying to do." And by framing it that way, you kind of give
mm.
it the attitude that you want to receive from it. It doesn't always work, but oddly it does prepare things a little bit better.
Yeah, but it just, you probably still benefit from asking it to fact check itself a bit
Oh,
and
for
to,
sure.
or or temp check, to just check itself. Um, but
Or if you
yeah,
just
some
want
AI
to,
tools, you can have different personalities, like different agents that are programmed in different ways. And then you get answers from both. Like the supervisor says this, and the HR manager says that, which is interesting.
yeah, yeah. We're talking about hiring
Uh,
and discrimination. I was kind of curious, like once you have a job though, keeping a job,
yeah.
that can
Well,
sometimes be as hard.
one of the questions that I will always ask in my job interviews when I'm being interviewed is, how many people have quit? How did that conversation go? How did you support them? You know, like why did they quit? How many people have you fired? How many people have you let go? What did that process look like? Why were they let go? You know, like tell me what the turnover is. And it's really reinforced because the company that I work at now, we have had, I think we've only had one person quit, and it's because he wanted to go on indefinite paternity leave or like indefinite parental leave. He had a kid, and you know they decided that it was just too much, and so that tells me that when people are having problems, they don't get fired, they don't quit, they're supported, or maybe maybe they're supported
It's it's an
if you don't have a
indicator.
lot of people.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good thing if you don't have a lot of people quitting,
Yeah.
for sure.
Or if they're reluctant to
So
answer the question, that's also an indicator.
Yep, I was about to say if they are like, oh well, we can't give you the exact numbers or whatever, I could,
that's bad.
yeah.
That's, you should, because I can give you exact number.
2,000?
Yeah.
Like orders of magnitude here.
Oh, Pablo, this is a really good question. Can you, it was too much text for my phone screen. Could you read it? Say.
Yeah, basically, I was wondering if people generally disclose your neurodivergency, if you have any. I know from myself, especially during the recruitment process, I don't because I'm very scared that I'll be considered a potential burden or a drain or a potential problem to the company. And since I don't want to hinder my chances, I not almost. I never disclose my neurodivergency until or if capital if I feel comfortable with my whatever manager, whoever that may be, doing so. So yeah, I'm just wondering what other people do in these situations.
I don't, I don't share. I also have health problems. I don't share. I don't share that because, yeah, exactly as you said, you have no idea how that person is going to receive it. And if somebody told me in an interview, oh, I have ADHD, I'd be like, cool, let's talk about that for a second. How does it manifest? What do you need? Like, how do we set you up for success? And it wouldn't be a big deal for me, but I am going to go out on a limb and say that I'm not a normal interviewer. And I think that I want to not say this, but I think that in a lot of ways it's a good idea to not be more complicated than you need to be. But then on the flip side, if you disclose that you have ADHD, you are then given the opportunity to have a really healthy conversation with the hiring team and know that if you are in a rut and you really need just a change of projects, you need a different setup, you need whatever it is, it's going to be a lot easier to have those conversations about accommodations. And I think it's impossible to say how it would land. So,
And I think there are ways to navigate and get a temperature check with that sort of thing. It could be as simple as, what is your DEI program? But I like to undermine it a little bit more than that and say, in my experience, I've worked with a lot of diverse people, and I find that diverse folks yield a lot of variety in terms of solutions to problems. If everybody's the same, Harvard bro, you're going to get tons of Harvard bro responses and no creativity outside of that box. So what does the diversity look like in your team, and how do you accommodate, paternity and maternity leave? How do you accommodate people who have disabilities? And just that temperature check, you didn't say a single thing about yourself. You're asking about the company and the organization. And depending on how they respond, you may become a little bit more authentic. But I think all of us grew up as kids learning how to mask very early on, because we have been tread upon by our peers, the people who had power over us. And so we're reluctant to share. But when you do have the opportunity to share that sort of thing, not only are you being authentic, but you can actually see how they can accommodate you. You really have to find that right moment to do it. You can't unsay it, though. And how are they going to represent who you are to other people? Because then you get the relay problem, the broken telephone problem. Oh, Pavlov's came along in this interview and all he could talk about is having ADHD. If that's the way that they received it, then that might not necessarily reflect on, but was Pavlov's qualified? Did you talk about that part? And it's not whether or not you did talk about that part. It's whether or not that's what they hung on. So if you give something to them to hang on, you can't unsay it. So I think, Faye, you're saying it really well. Your main focus in an interview should first and foremost be understanding whether this is a place that you want to work, and whether or not they feel you're credible and qualified enough to work there. If you can focus on those bits, then you can kind of increase the onion out from there into the things that are a little bit more like deeper qualifications beyond, oh, do you have any questions for us? Do you have a benefit package? I mean, that used to be the go-to like question, but that should be offered information, or they have an employee handbook that you can look at, which is another thing to ask for before an interview.
Trying to remember how many jobs I've had where I've read the employee handbook.
I mean, you're going to sign it at some point anyway. You might as well take a look under the hood at anything that they are willing to share.
I think I probably have read them at all of my jobs. I just can't remember. Okay, so one thing that Chad, you were bringing up, having your job and keeping your job.
Yeah.
This whole concept of accommodations for someone with ADHD is actually relatively new in my brain because, also having lupus, it's I think it's easier for us to understand accommodations for someone with a physical disability. Like, oh, I might need stretch breaks or like a special chair, stuff like this. But for ADHD, it's like a new thing in my life where I'm like, oh, I can ask for stuff like help. How do I even do that? What do I even ask for? And I think that's a really important piece, because if you show up and you're like, I have ADHD and I'm struggling, then it puts the onus, like it puts the responsibility on your manager to kind of problem solve for you. But if you show up with solutions and you're like, hey, here's what I'm experiencing right now, and here's what I need. And here are 3 different ways that we could achieve that thing that I need. So what do we ask for?
Yeah, I think it partly depends on the type of job that you have, like a truck driver, a food prep person, a programmer, a project
Yeah.
manager. I mean, all of these have very different skills and responsibilities. I think the makeup of who you are accountable to is also another factor in how you request those accommodations. In most companies, you're really going to just have one direct report. But if you're also a manager yourself, accommodations to make sure that you can manage the people that you're responsible for is also very important. The accommodations that I've asked for, and maybe a few of you have some as well, that might differ from this, are things like if you ask me to do something, I personally love commitment language and definitions of done. I mean, those are things that are elemental to like agile development. Create a ticket. What does done look like? Define it. And if it's super vague, then you're going to get super vague. It's not going to meet your expectations. So it's clear expectation setting. Use quantifiable and qualifiable information where possible. And commitment languages, I will do X by Y time, or somebody else will do X by Y time. So what if you're autistic or if you have ADHD, these are really good, important points of communication, because it gets beyond that like contextual misunderstanding side of things. And it may have a little extra load to it, but it holds even someone that's neurotypical responsible for what they're actually asking. Or when it comes to performance review time, I ask this across the board for the past 10 years. If you're going to hire me, I want to know in 6 months when we do a performance review, what are you measuring me against? Because as I'm working, I want to know what number I'm trying to hit. Is it a number of sales? Is it, how many hours I bill? What am I actually because some managers will move that goalpost or not even define it. And
Or not define it.
That's not okay. So that's my accommodation, is clear, well-defined communication. That's that's the main one.
Worst is when you find out about those goalposts for the first time during your performance review.
It's the wrong time to find out.
Oh God. Or you find out that, like, especially with the soft goalposts, like communication, you want to be an effective communicator. You find out that in some cases you're communicating too much, and then in other cases you're not communicating enough, but they can't tell you who or when or why. Or I'm like, I need you to be really specific with me and give me examples of times that I could improve versus just telling me that I didn't do a good job at communication.
Like, if you want me to be a well-tuned race car, you have to dial in every parameter. And even then, we'll test it, see if it works. And if it doesn't work, we'll tweak it. And we work together to make that race car win races.
Yeah. The timesheets one, Pavlos, that you mentioned, I struggled with that so much. Sometimes it would take me, like, especially when I was a manager and I was working on a whole bunch of different projects, at the end of the day, you are wiped. You are so tired. and you cannot remember what you worked on all day. And it's like, it would take me like 45 minutes sometimes to go through and try and figure out. And the frustrating, or like the thing is, as a manager, if you are asking your team to do things that are that difficult and time consuming, there's a very high probability that they are going to start cutting corners.
Yep.
They're going to start guessing. They're going to start faking it, because we know that we worked all day and we need to get paid all day. But like, if you can't honestly, to your best ability, figure out which 15 minutes was spent on what project and where, and you have to do this every single day, eventually people are going to start to get burned out. And so I wonder if the accommodation is not just no timesheets. As much as I love that, I don't have timesheets anymore. It's brilliant. I think I actually work quite a lot more. More of my mental energy goes to the actual work. I wonder if the accommodation is like, there are different paid and unpaid solutions that sort of
Uh-oh. Faye's frozen.
She's in the middle of a hot thought too.
I know.
Happens to us all. Now the trick is reminding her where she left off.
Okay, can you hear me
Can
now?
we just all
Yes.
make a pose? Oh wait, too late.
We're all frozen.
You are making a
I'll
pose.
freeze. Yeah, I'll freeze.
Yeah, I took a screenshot. Just for you because it was a really good look on your face, Eric. I wonder if the accommodation is tools that can work on your local device. So it's not like reporting what tab you were in to management and spying on you all day, but tools that you can use on your local device that will help you identify at the end of the day and quickly be able to tally up what projects you were working on in a reasonable way that, you know, like, but if there's a paid solution, they should pay for it and give it to you.
That's what I'm kind of being
Yep.
So along the lines of, well, I guess the more broad time management and accountability, you've got timesheets, of course. I think punctuality is another thing. How many times have people been late to a meeting for just frivolous, like I didn't get the reminder, or I was so hyper focused on this one thing I forgot about it. And budgeting the work that you have. Again, if I have an hour to do something and I'm hyper focused and 2 hours go by, then I have to explain why it took me 2 hours to do something that was budgeted for one. And I think that's why time boxing kind of helps, is then you can check in and say, I wasn't able to get this done, which is a fair thing to say before you burn another hour. Do you want me to keep working? So it's those like good communication practices. And it can seem annoying at first, both to yourself and the person you're talking to.
No, that's
But if you get people conditioned for that type of language of being accountable and managing your time, it kind of takes those impairments off of you, and it is partially sharing it with other people. And that's what an accommodation is saying, I have an impairment. Like if I'm missing an arm, you know that that's an impairment, and I need something to help me, type effectively with one hand. You can recognize that. And my throughput won't be as high as a programmer, perhaps with two hands. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm really talented.
Agree to disagree. One of the most boss engineers on our team is fantastic.
Yeah.
But
I know.
I'm sure that it comes at a price. So yeah.
but I think the point I'm making is it's okay to express that a person has whatever their condition, ailment, disability, impairment, whatever you want to call it. This is who I am. I am a whole person. I'm a human being. I am not a machine. This is what I'm capable of. and my capabilities are going to change from day to day, just like yours will. Sometimes you will be emotionally exhausted, and maybe I can show up for you and maybe cover a little bit for you. So sometimes we also have to help other people accommodate, and working with other people who are neurodivergent, I think kind of conditions you to understand how you can balance your own and what's actually fair to ask for. Um,
Mm.
there's a
So that
lot
sounds
that's
a bit
fair.
like the distributed leadership model. Are you familiar with that term?
That is familiar, yeah.
So you know how there's a meme that's going around about activism right now, where they're like, choirs can hold a note for a very long time because everybody is kind of tagging in and out to take breaths as needed, and then everybody overall contributes to this really healthy, sustained note. And this is sort of a metaphor for the distributed leadership model, where if you have things set up, and this is part of what I do for work, and I love it. If you have things set up so that everybody kind of knows what the people around them, beside them, above them, below them, whatever it is, are doing, and if that person needs to tag out, which is actually me this week, I needed the week off, and I had to just kind of like drop what I was doing, and I've worked hard to kind of try to set it up so that the people around me are able to just be like, go do what you got to do. Go take care of the things you need to take care of. We all have health problems. Sometimes we have mental health, physical health. We have friends and family who run into these problems. We have just life challenges, and our houses burned down. Like, there's so many things that happen that make it so that you may not be able to show up, even if it's not an accommodation for ADHD. You may not be able to show up, and being able to structure things intentionally so that we can all support each other is one part of it. That's also a huge culture. Like, the company that I work at right now has this fantastic culture of supporting each other and sort of working together and being able to kind of take things on when one person I thought you were telling me that my internet was dropping again, and I was like, no. Yeah, distributed leadership is just the idea of making sure that everybody can support everybody else, and it's so beautiful, so beautiful.
That sounds like a good workplace accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it works for all teams or not, I
Everyone.
think is really, I think it's what is it that you're doing? What's the structure of your team? But teams could also structure themselves on
Mm,
purpose
we
with that in
should.
mind. Yeah.
We should, because as it turns out, at the end of the day, things that work for people who have ADHD tend to actually also work really, really well for people who do not have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sometimes I feel like I'm being a burden asking for accommodations, which I think is also an important point. Is it's adjacent to the imposter syndrome. Like, oh God, and it kind of triggers the masking and the like, let me go try to act like I'm a neurotypical person, that sort of thing. Um,
I'll be right back. Just give me a second.
but it's so surprising how many people are willing to actually help, especially when they know that you're going to do a better job if you're asking for help. So I've read a lot of leadership books, and some of the biggest lessons that I really got from leadership was one, you can't have a leader that's managing more than 5 people. It's just not possible. It's not effective leadership. Your attention's partitioned. Oddly enough, the military figured that out a long time ago, which is why you have so many ranks and distributed teams. But also, what's worse than um, people who perform poorly is leaders who perform poorly. They've actually shown how you can take uh, kind of a weak team that has a weak leader at the helm and switch out and put in a stronger leader can perform really, really well just by that change alone. And I guess the last thing, because leadership is really important to understanding what you can ask for in accommodations, is just being able to I'm losing my thought. Here it goes. Evaporates.
Take a second.
Um, I think when you're a leader, you have to take ownership of mistakes. You have to be accountable for the performance of your team. You can't point at your team or individuals and say, it's your fault that we all failed. If that is the sign of like the worst type of leader. Now, you can have a one-on-one conversation about trying to make your team better, and have a one-on-one conversation with an individual who might not be performing well, because that's your role as a leader, is to elevate them, to make them better, or to figure that out. And that's where the accommodations really start to fit in, and why a leader is really important in this conversation about accommodations. Because if they're not performing, you as the leader ultimately aren't performing, and it just goes right up the chain. So if that leader isn't performing, is their manager or is their leader not giving them the tools to properly lead? And it just keeps going up the chain. So ultimately, it goes all the way to the top. If there's a failure, the failure stops at the top.
Although I have noticed a lot of agencies, the dev managers act as these like human shields, and they kind of protect their team from all of the undue stress, and they just absorb it. And their team is fairly happy, and they're productive and great. And the dev manager has chunks of hair just falling.
Yeah.
And it can happen this way too, not just as dev managers, but if leadership above you is not up to par, then it means that it will filter down unless somebody is able to shield the people, and that comes at a very high cost.
And I've seen so many project managers burn out because they were those human shields. Or, I won't say the company because this is not the venue for it. I was in a project
recorded.
that had an impossible deadline. So again, it's so vague that it could be anywhere. It could be any project, but it had an impossible deadline. And one of the main leaders, if you will, made a demand that everybody just show up in person, because we were all remote, and this was during COVID, really remote, and we were all forced into the office early because we got a full day ahead of us, right? Well, one person had a panic attack and
I wouldn't go.
had to go to the hospital. So I won't give any more details than that, because then it starts to reveal who and what and all that.
That's ridiculous.
But I guess the point is that's a failure of leadership, and it's a failure of accommodation. It's a failure of communication. Of like, the project got to that point because you weren't paying attention to what was happening. You're starting to panic and get desperate for something to happen that's a commitment, and you're making poor choices and putting that responsibility on your team. And if everybody leaves, you don't have a team.
Yeah. And these things I can speak with my mouth. Let me try that again. Disproportionately affect marginalized people. Just literally what one of my DrupalCon session topics was how poor leadership affects people with ADHD and autism differently, sometimes in completely invisible and very painful and dramatic, or even traumatic ways. It's so true. And we don't talk about it because we're like, if we talk about it, then they're going to find out that I'm different and that I'm actually more work, and I don't want to be more work because then I'll get fired.
I'm putting a note in the resources.
ADHD is actually awesome if we are set up appropriately. If we are set up appropriately and supported properly, people with ADHD and autism can be just absolutely mind-blowingly phenomenal employees. So
yeah,
step it up, leaders. Do better.
Mm-hmm.
That's my accommodation. I want my manager to be a good manager.
Yeah.
To have empathy and patience.
In the interview process, make sure that you can meet your manager.
Yeah.
That's
No,
always...
I don't think I would ever take a job and not know who my manager was. I think that an interesting accommodation that we actually do all the time, and uh, it's not a big deal. It's not a bad thing. It's kind of just like a light, like sometimes we need a change of scenery. Sometimes our people change teams. And no, it happens frequently enough that it's not like, oh, why did they change teams? Were they doing something wrong? Sometimes it's just like, actually, we need more front end skills over there. Or sometimes it's because somebody just needs a different style of manager or whatever it is. Like there's so many different reasons. Sometimes a change of scenery as a person with ADHD, like it kind of like wipes the slate clean and it's a bit of a fresh start, a little bit of like potential for dopamine, reduce the wall of awful. So being able to just switch teams, if there are multiple teams that you could be on, is probably potentially very helpful, depending on a million variables. But did they not like me? You know what? I actually think, just honestly, every time that comes up, I think that if everybody likes me, I'm doing something wrong. I need to be a little louder. And I know this is not a thing that I actually need, but if I'm doing everything right, I need to be a little louder and a little more opinionated because we are all so different. I don't want everybody to like me. So if somebody's like, you know what, you're not for me, I'm like, thank goodness, because likewise. So thanks for getting that out in the open.
Good
Next.
thing we're not married.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Faye, I think you're saying something that we also need to kind of talk about, which is partly, well, actually very heavily a factor in especially ADHD. And I have both autism and ADHD, so I can't really separate them too easily sometimes. Is motivators. So the act of starting a task is sometimes one of the hardest things. And I think any human can relate to that from a generalized perspective. In my personal experience, and from what I've heard from other neurospicy folks, is it is heavily amplified. Just that idea of starting. And over the years, we all find our little hacks or whatever, but there are some fundamental things that ring true. First off, ADHD and autism are both rooted in a dopamine deficiency. So if you understand your body and your chemistry and what that means to you personally, you can treat that. That treatment can come in medication, which of course talk to a medical professional if that's something that you're interested in doing. It can come in other forms like cognitive behavioral therapy. Therapy is something that's helped me a tremendous amount, and I couldn't recommend it enough for folks. Even sometimes career coaching, things like that, just to have someone outside of work to talk to about what's going on and kind of keep you on the rails. But motivators are, and I have it written down on a sticky right above my desk because of this reason whenever I can't start. So the things that you want to think about if there's a task is, number one, is it urgent? Because if it's not urgent, you may not want to start it. You may procrastinate it. How many times have you procrastinated studying until the day before an exam sort of thing? Or novelty. So Faye, you brought up that idea of switching a department, something new, something fresh, asking for a transfer. Something new or something novel is appealing to everybody, but especially that dopamine hit that we get. And it kind of drives us forward. Making it interesting, which is a little bit different than just the novelty, is like you kind of have to talk yourself up. I want to write this proposal for an RFP, and it can be super freaking boring at times, reading through hundreds of pages of documentation and regulations and how we're supposed to respond in a government RFP, especially. But what can I do to make that interesting? Might be something like, well, who is it for? Why is this a good cause? There's some sort of spin to drive that interest up a little bit, or just the idea of having good grammar for me personally. Making it easier. Sometimes a task is so big that that's what stops you. So one of the good things that you can do is break up a task into smaller bits, or understand what is blocking you from that being easier. Like maybe there's an obstacle you can't vocalize, but talking to somebody through that to make it easy. And the last thing, the most important thing, is don't worry about perfection, because perfection is a huge obstacle for people. Just do the imperfect, the sloppy version first, and sometimes that's good enough, or at least it gets you started.
Dries said that in the keynote
Oh,
in
nice.
Atlanta. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'm not a person who quotes people, but there's an interesting, you're talking about, briefly you mentioned why, or like reframing and sort of like thinking about like what is on my list. And I recently read an article, and if this resonates, I encourage people to go do your own research because I'm going to do a terrible job at reiterating. But they talked about we have to-do lists, and sometimes it can really help with motivation or understanding prioritization if instead of having a to-do list, you have a to-do because list. So
make it interesting.
Go grocery shopping because I need coffee and I really like ice cream, or like whatever, because I really want to have ice cream for my sister. And then you're like, you know what, actually there's an emotional piece in there that feels important to me. So I'm going to make sure that I go grocery, or like whatever the thing is. But I think the idea is having, instead of just like feeling the overwhelm of all of the things that we need to do, really checking in with yourself about like, why are these things important to me or in general? Study because I really don't want to experience the stress of cramming before my exam. Like, you know what, actually prioritizing my own needs in this case. Study because getting a really great grade is going to set me up for having this career that I'm passionate about. You're like, oh, okay. Focus on the career and the passion or whatever it is. I don't know. It didn't really super resonate with me personally. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if that one's for me, but it seems like
it's that dopamine hit though. Thinking about a long-term success, you're not getting that instant gratification.
Oh, I have to have long-term goals.
Oh, for sure.
It kind of resonates with me, the to do because.
Yeah.
But only if the because doesn't have anything to do with me. So if you tell me if you don't tell me you have to do this because this is how you get your bonus, I'll be like, do I really care about that bonus that much? But if you tell me you have to do this, otherwise Faye won't get her bonus, I'll be like, oh, I don't want to affect Faye negatively, so I'll go ahead and do it.
You know what? That's valid if that's what motivates you. And honestly, I am way more easily motivated. I think a lot of us are. It's easier to do something for someone else or that also benefits someone else than it is just for yourself for a lot of people.
It's like that ADHD meme that goes around that we should gather all the ADHD people and then have each other go clean another person's dishes or house.
Oh, yeah.
That's terrible and beautiful.
Yeah.
I have no problem doing stuff for other people, but if it's coming down to doing stuff for me, then it's not getting done.
Commitments versus personal care. And I think that's another thing that therapy has, at least speaking for myself, has helped me a lot with is slowing down a little bit and caring more about myself means that I actually live a bit happier and more stable, and I can be better with other people. But like, when was the last time I got a haircut, or when was the last time that I went for a walk with my dog, or just any of those little things that you do for yourself. Then when you go back to the tasks, the obligations that you have for other people, I don't know, it can feel a little refreshing at times.
Go for walks with your dog, though.
Well, of course.
They got these short little lives, then
Mutually
you
beneficial.
gotta just give them all the love.
We
All the
overswam her. She has something called swimmer's tail,
love.
where the tail just goes limp and a little bit crooked. And
Oh my God.
she now cannot do anything for 5 days.
Oh, Lily is
She's a
I don't
working
I've
dog.
met Lily. I met Lily in person. Lily is the wiggliest dog that I have ever met in my life. So I have seen evidence of her holding very still while sleeping. But when I went to go visit Chad and Shelly, my dog was just like staring at this. Like my dog's very stoic and calm, and he was just like the entire time. And Shelly, Lily was just like, so finding out Lily overdid it swimming in her tail.
She swam for a week practically.
She has swimmer's tail.
Yeah.
That's so adorable and tragic and very sweet. And I'm glad that she's getting all of the swims. But
Which is a perfect, completely unrelated segue over to personal drive. So motivation is one thing, but drive is another thing. And we were talking about like leaders and accommodation, things like that. There's a really good book by Daniel Pink. If you haven't read it, please read it. It's called Drive, literally just called Drive. And what it really focuses on is what actually motivates you as a person. Because a lot of time, this is the quintessential neurospicy thing that you hear when you're a kid. You're not living up to your potential. It's the most crushing thing that you can say to somebody, especially during development. But the antithesis of that is, well, what are you doing, mentor, person responsible for my development and upbringing, to actually help me realize my potential? And I think as adults, we need to embrace that attitude of not only seeking out people who are here to support us at work and outside of work, but also understanding what makes that tick. So I think you were right, Faye, earlier in terms of like seeking value-based decisions. But those values come from somewhere, that what drives you as a person. Maybe I like working with Drupal because I like seeing people use systems that are easy to maintain and convey information in a clean way if they're built well. And that's another drive, is I want them to be built well. So like picking apart your own personal drive is really good, but having your manager do that with you is also really good. And having your manager understand your drive lets them tap into your potential and harness that and accelerate it, and maybe provide you with things like educational opportunities or working on projects that they otherwise wouldn't have considered having you work on. And those are forms of accommodations, and those are not exclusive to neurodivergent people.
Having a good balance.
Yeah.
One novel project that you get to work on when you finish the other things in your week. Mine is AI.
Your
When
dessert.
I get all of the boring stuff done, I get to go do AI research. And so a productive week means that my Friday is like very happy, like tinkering and doing research. And I started doing a lot better when I realized that you can actually kind of proactively create that balance for yourself to a certain effect. But also I'm lucky in that I have a little more autonomy in my workplace. But I think that's a fantastic accommodation, is like, look, I need some candy to balance some of this other stuff. So
and they benefit from it too, because you're showing up as a brighter, more energetic, more capable person. When that's the case, you're more durable when it comes to fatigue, when you're getting something and satisfaction out of your work. I mean, it's that silly adage of if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, which I don't fully subscribe to that, but I see the heart of what that's trying to say. Work is still work. It's called that for a reason. But I also think that if you're doing something that you enjoy, you get much more fulfillment out of it, and you are a better person for
it. Dopamine. We chase dopamine. I've noticed a lot of people with ADHD chase the like really intense, high priority tasks. They want the like high pressure projects, and
sense of
then it just
accomplishment.
becomes, and we burn ourselves out.
Yeah.
We burn ourselves out because we don't, like, it's just, you can't just be running from one fire to the next ad nauseum, right? Like at some point you need some like boring days or like admin days. Mondays are my admin day. There is not necessarily any specific project. Like the thing that I need to accomplish on Monday is just like checking my email, go through the backlog, like
Oh,
check my old to-do list, read all my half drafted messages. That's a Monday. That is what, and I literally just have a day for like doing, oh, not the whole day. I take like half a day to kind of
oh,
go through and,
AI helps write emails and messages so much now.
oh,
Like,
yeah,
I don't
I
know how to say this
haven't
in the
gotten
most
there with
polite
it.
way.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm lucky enough to work in a place that values candor. So I think
Well,
enough of us are neurodiverse and open up about it that, sometimes we're like, oh, sorry, can you say that again? I wasn't paying attention. Like,
there's a
and then we just say it again. We're like, you know what? It's okay.
that's
Let's just be
actually
honest about it.
the name of another book that I could recommend is called Radical Candor by Kim Scott.
Oh, I love that one. It's so good. I love it. I love it. I love it. I highly recommend that one.
Yep. Yeah, that was fantastic. When I read that, I was really thrilled. That the biggest takeaway that I loved was the emphasis on one-to-one meetings. How many times have you been in a meeting and with multiple people and somebody calls you out, especially your boss, and it's just embarrassing. It just crushes.
Mm,
It's awful. But she also pointed out there's a difference between rock stars and superstars. You know, rock stars that our work system is geared towards helping people get promotions and climb the corporate ladder, and that's the expectation, especially when it comes to performance review time. Um, but you also have people who like what they do and don't want to change. Maybe I just want to be a developer and I don't want to change, and that's it. And the system isn't really designed to reward that type of person, but those people are quite essential. Like if I wanted to be a plumber for the rest of my life, why would you punish me and say I got to own a whole team of plumbers and I can't do plumbing anymore? Silly. The reward should just be doing the thing.
That would
Anyway,
be ideal. I feel like there is often kind of a, focus to, I don't know, keep pushing people along, further and further up, even if you feel like you haven't really like mastered, that particular role, like I
mhm.
feel like I can really, I would rather, perfect the art of plumbing, so to speak,
Yeah,
than, give myself the extra stress of having to own a company with like dealing with other plumbers. Yeah.
yeah, and I think there's something to be proud of when you become an expert, and then you just become very nuanced. I don't think a person becomes a brain surgeon because they were climbing the corporate ladder. They just get very, very focused on what it is that they do. And there are plenty of people that we have all encountered in our field who are just absolutely amazing at what they do. And you would beg them not to change what they're doing because it would be a major loss of that specific brilliance. Should
mm.
be rewarded, but it's oftentimes not.
We should tell people more often when they're doing a good job. Because I think that we think that those people who are super amazing know, and very often they don't.
Operant conditioning is what that's called. So
Operant conditioning. Tell me more about this.
So operant conditioning, I only know about this because of dog training. So operant conditioning, yeah, it works on us. It totally works on us. So if somebody does something that I like and I give them a reward, then they are more likely to do that. So you're carving neural pathways. if they do something that I don't like and I punish them, they're not necessarily as likely to not do it. So there's a positivity bias. So if you want a dog to do something specific, you almost ignore them in certain cases when they do something wrong, and you focus much more on rewarding them when they do something that you do want. And they start to learn the direction through operant conditioning. It's the strangest thing, and it feels unnatural. And when a person is frustrated that something's not happening the way they want, the tendency is to punish. But then, to your point, Faye, the opposite doesn't happen. So if you buy a product and you don't like it, bad review. But how many times do we go and we say, great review?
I do.
But
I get
it's
more
the
good
exception.
reviews than bad.
It's the exception, not the rule. But to your point, you get a lot further in conditioning anyone, anything through positivity. Our
Publish,
brains
I'm
are just
definitely gonna get
hardwired.
I'm gonna get a clicker and a bag of treats for my manager and be like, this works. I'm gonna tell you something that is incredibly nerdy, and I hope this is a safe space and anybody watching is going to appreciate this. I am not joking. I have stickers in my car for when I do a good job.
Ooh,
I am not joking. So, and the reason that I started doing this is because over COVID, everybody, like, we were all struggling, and it was like just getting to the grocery store and buying like 3 healthy things and getting out of there, like not showing up hungry or whatever. It was such a high bar. And so I wish somebody would give me a sticker. So I started giving myself imaginary stickers because I was like, let's be honest here, I have ADHD. I don't have the executive function to create a sticker chart for myself. So I'm just going to give myself imaginary stickers just to acknowledge that I'm doing a good job. It was very dorky, but I'd be like in the checkout line, I'd be like, boop. But eventually I got myself real stickers. And, another example is I really struggle and I have a lot of stress. I think this is a common one. When someone says, text me when you get home so I know you're safe. Thank you, Natalie. Text me when you get home. And I'm like, oh my God, if I forget to text them, they're going to think I died and I'm in a ditch and I'm dead forever. And I have reprogrammed myself because I have stickers in the car. And I will send them a selfie with a sticker on my face or whatever it is. I know that this is not really for everyone, but that is exactly what it is. And it is incredibly dorky and it works so well.
You've conditioned yourself. And
It's reframing it. It's like addressing the wall of awful. And now it's not a wall of awful anymore. It's not my friends are going to think I'm dead. It's oh, hey, now I'm going to do this like silly, playful thing that I get to do if I remember to do the thing. And it's actually okay if I don't.
and you have needs. The world has needs, and rewarding yourself when you meet those needs is a good practice. But I think I like the joke about the clicker of the bag of treats, but the point is stickers are a reward. Find your reward, and the people you work with should know your reward. I like it when I have this, or I get this, or even if it's just a good job. I mean, just an affirmation of doing something good, especially when we have so much self-doubt and imposter syndrome. It can be the validation that we really need to know that we're actually heading in the right direction. So that goes back to the good communication. Here's the expectation, but also after I fulfill the expectation, that's mutated so much in my head over that course of time that I may kind of lose it a little bit, or I may think, hey, Faye hasn't talked to me in a while. She must hate me. But then when Faye comes along and says, I really like you, then I don't think that anymore. I think what I'm getting at with the operant conditioning, though, is this is a bigger concept, and I don't think it's spiritual. I think it's scientific. Brains are like big pegboards that you have little balls drop down a pegboard. I'm sure you've all seen like which hopper is it going into. So it's decisions. But we as humans, and I believe not humans, are capable of free will, and we are capable of molding ourselves. So it's the idea of bending the peg a little bit so the ball tends to go in another direction. And those are the neural pathways that we create. So if you don't exercise and you want to start exercising, you have to do it over and over again through routine, and you reward yourself. And then after, 3 months or more, you start to actually enjoy it or actually see the need of doing it. So you've carved those neural pathways to say that's something that you want to do. It's not so much the act of exercising, but rather the free will of deciding that's something that you want to do. So if it's trying to find a job, or trying to find someone to support you to have a job, or talking to your boss about keeping your job, or something like that. Sometimes it's about finding what it is that you can actually change in yourself to do better and to participate. And, we want people to support us, but it's okay to also ask for support. People don't know the support that you need until you actually put yourself out there and routinely do that sort of thing.
I'm terrible at asking for support.
It's important, but that's what your stickers are for.
Oh, that's me. Well, that's also that's a reframe. I like to rebrand things when something's not working for me. Like it's not just about the sticker and the I can't remember the term you used. The clicker
Operant.
and the dog treats. It's not just about the reward, it's about the reframing for me as well. This also works with water. I was having a lot of trouble motivating myself to drink water. And so I stopped calling it water. I rebranded water, and it is now a bit that all of my friends are in on. I call water flow juice. And I'm like, oh, flow juice is actually completely different from water. You can drink as much flow juice as you want. All this pressure about you have to drink 8 glasses of water a day. Not with flow juice. You drink as much as you want. Actually, even most houses are already pre-plumbed for flow juice. You just have to run the water. You just have to run the tap a little bit to flush the water out so that you don't get contaminated flow juice. And like all of a sudden, there's a reframe that has helped me like move away from the sort of like the negative, the struggle and the negative thoughts and the wall of awful, and just kind of make it fun and playful. Which is play is it's another source of dopamine, as well as novelty and challenge.
Yeah.
And time pressure.
Urgency.
Yeah.
Yeah, urgency.
Like urgency.
Like
things being literally on fire that need your attention.
Yeah, that happened to me last week. Something was literally on fire that needed attention. I was in the shower at the time. A propane bottle almost blew up beside me.
Oh my God. So like a literal
fire.
Okay, wow.
Well, I'm glad you have your eyebrows still.
Yep.
Yeah.
And your hair.
Yeah, Shelly helped put it out. She was my firefighter hero.
Shelly.
So we're getting close to the end of our wonderful meetup. And we haven't even said hi to Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, sorry for being late. I had to fix a flat tire, or I had to put a unflattened tire back onto the car, so it was available to drive.
That was urgency.
Not really. I mean, I just needed to do it for my wife needs to go to an acupuncture appointment tomorrow, so
Just get it done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice out, so.
I was going to say, what about novelty? Is there novelty in that? Because we have a lot of Zoom meetings all the time, but how often do you get to change a flat tire?
Yeah, I got to go out to that. It was slightly frustrating. I'll give you 10 guesses about where in the car the jack was located. And I can pretty much guarantee that you're not going to guess it.
Under the trunk.
The jack
thing?
No.
Lift the... No?
Yeah, not under the trunk.
It's too big for a glove compartment or center console.
Not in the glove compartment or the center console.
Too
Somehow
big, couldn't
stuck
be.
Under the back seat?
Not under the back seat.
Front seat?
Under any seat?
Yes. It is located under the driver's seat,
Oh.
That's great.
behind a plastic panel that you have to remove in order to see it.
That's where it goes, not where it was left.
No,
That's
no,
where it actually goes.
this is the first flat that we've had in 15 years of having the car. And
Wow.
did not had no idea that the jack for the thing, like the handle for the jack's in the trunk, but the jack itself is under the driver's seat. And I am glad that I was taking a leisurely time repairing the car at home, because if I was on the side of a highway trying to figure out how to get the car up and the donut on, I would not have been amused, because I would have just thought that there was no jack. Like I had to read the manual. I'm like, there's got to be something in the
The
manual.
trick to this.
Let me read the manual to make sure I haven't missed anything. And they're like, oh yeah, just go underneath pull the driver's seat forward as far as it will go, and then you'll have access to this plastic cover, and then you take out the plastic cover, and then you have to like spin the jack thing to close it so it can fit out of the bracket, which was stuck, so I had needed to use a anyway. It was not intuitive locating of the emergency equipment that
This
you
is a
by definition need uh, at a moment when you're not expecting it.
and probably not thinking super sharply. This is a really great example of something that if it were designed for someone with ADHD, it would actually benefit everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, universal design. Yeah.
Or just like, it's the standard is you put it in the trunk next to, and there's plenty of room in the trunk. There's like bins and stuff they provided, plenty of space everywhere.
You
They
should
had
put it in the trunk.
Yeah, I am. They had little
Wouldn't
slots
it?
for the. Well, now, but what if someone like looks in the manual and they're like, "Oh, I don't see it under the
You, you,
driver's thing."
you put a little index card where it
Yep.
used to go.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What if instead of having to read the manual and treasure hunt for all of the things, all of the things for fixing the tire were in one place, and then there was exactly, Chad, exactly my
What if
thought,
you kept
a
the handle of
single
the jack?
card,
Yeah.
a single card with like bullet points. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. For more information, read page 27 of the manual found in the glove
I
compartment.
mean, like, or put a label in the trunk next to the thing saying "Jack under driver's seat," like,
So
something.
you didn't even get the luxury of timing yourself how fast you could change the tire. Because
I was not in a rush. I have to rush enough stuff. I was taking my time, just sitting
that-
outside
uh,
the side of the road.
Yeah, good.
So
I was
I'm glad the
driving
weather was good.
I was driving Vanessa's car back from the Pacific Northwest Drupal Summit
Oh, you
and got a flat.
told.
And she also had wheel locks. Thankfully, we had the key for the wheel lock. But yeah, and that road in Seattle is just so freaking bumpy. I thought that it was just the road for like a good couple kilometers. It wasn't hard, but she had never changed a tire before. So I got to teach her how to change a tire.
It can be frustrating
Yeah.
under the best of circumstances.
Yeah, you crack the lug
Can
nuts
be.
before you jack it up. Yeah, a lot of people don't know how to do that or change oil or brake pads or a lot of just common easy maintenance stuff.
Yeah, I think about this. I'm like, I've changed a tire on a car a couple times. There's a spare tire on the back of my RV. I have no idea how I would change the tire on the RV. I don't know if I have. Like, do I use my car jack to jack up the RV? Like, I should probably educate myself on this, because if I get a flat tire on an RV, there's a very high probability that I will not have cell service.
Is the lug
when
nut the
this
same
happens.
size as your car?
Oh, I'm not super worried about that. I have a socket set that I don't know, that would probably maybe help. I don't know.
Well, if
Like
you have to
that
crack the
part.
lug nuts, you need a very long bar sometimes to crack lug nuts.
Yeah, so that stuff, there's a lot of equipment that comes with the RV that I'm sure but like, I don't know where there is a jack that would be appropriate
Now you know
for
to
an
look.
RV. Like the clearance is quite a lot higher than on my SUV that I tow it with. The clearance is like half or something. So I don't think that the car jack would actually work on the RV. I don't know.
Maybe it's
These are
behind
later
the
people
spare tire.
problems. I'm going to check behind the spare tire that is on the back of the RV.
And then check under your driver's seat.
I will check under the driver's seat of my towable RV. Absolutely. I will make sure that I look there. Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those things that I'm like, I should really do that. I'll do it later.
Mm-mm.
No, I won't.
Nope. You won't have the motivation, or maybe you just won't remember.
It's just not a shiny task.
No.
Oh,
I
no.
love those little thoughts of like, what was I planning on doing? It's like a little gnat that just flies away.
Yep.
You know what? Let it fly. Because there's not actually space in your brain for all of them.
My grandma told me
Let them-
something when I was young. If it's important, you'll remember it. So far, that's
False.
worked.
Mm. False.
Yeah. Nothing's important, says Pavlov. I mean, we're all star stuff sort of thing in the grand scheme of the universe. The
I tend
human
to forget a
fabrication.
lot of things, so that saying doesn't really work for me.
So, what is going on for you for the next month between now and when we meet next? And does that influence what you want to talk about in our next meetup?
We're working on a new base theme for Kalamuna, trying to combine our two existing base themes into a new one. And so that
Nice.
means that we're revisiting basically every common practice and saying, do we really need to do this? Or how should this work better? So that's fun.
So, shedding lots of technical debt, consolidating design system sort of thing.
Yeah, and then just like questions like, does it really make sense to use the branding block to display the site logo? Like, you have to like define a region to have a block and then put the block, image into the settings and stuff like that. When really like in many cases you just put an SVG in the page template. It's like, which is the most Drupal way. Some questions like that, deep questions. Because I mean, sometimes some clients have a desktop version or a logo and a mobile version that's like, works on a smaller, maybe. And the Drupal appearance settings only have one logo and don't provide any ability to have alternate versions.
Flexibility. So, is that something that would go back into Contrib?
No. I mean, we might open source the theme when we're done with it. I'd like to think we will.
I think it's important, but I also understand the investment tends to be the deciding factor for some companies.
I mean, we like having contrib projects
Yeah,
and
tends to help.
get that street cred.
Kalamuna has been pretty good with that. Well, do you think it would be at a point in a month where you would have something to present or talk about?
Well, we have a project coming up in about that time that we need a new theme, so hopefully.
All right.
Pablos, what is your P&W Summit session on?
Mhm.
You said you have to get your P&W Summit session prepped. What is
Oh,
it on?
yeah.
What's your topic?
We're working on a couple of projects at Bluefly that we want to put out in the world for people to take a look at how you can use some very common modules that almost every Drupal project has to do something, to do powerful stuff with Drupal, basically.
Maybe the next topic could be something of a hybrid, talking about developing modules and games with performance in mind, or something. I don't know if you can find some overlap, but doing a bit of a deep dive. I'm thinking about performance because this is like, it's such a big deal at my work. We're always doing these incredible deep dives into performance. But yeah, if there's some sort of like technical kind of overlap of the things that we're looking at, might be interesting.
I'm writing all these down. Any other topic ideas that you want to put on the board? I'm sure there's too many. And we do have some carryover from last time. I think I could be wrong about this, but there's a goal to have Experience Builder ready by the end of the month. I'm excited about that, mostly because I want to get my personal website up and running with it.
I was just checking to see when the beta was supposed to come out to see if we could do something around that.
Yeah, it says at the end of July, but you know how these targets work. They're a little bit fluid.
Yeah.
When was that? Like, I feel like I missed something.
I heard about it early this year, and I can't remember where I heard about it. But here, I do have it.
Yeah, if you
open.
go to the Experience Builder project page, it says July 31st.
Mm-hmm.
It's the next milestone to enable the creation of non-throwaway sites.
Yep. And there it is. Yep, current focus. Put that in our show notes. There's light. And this is a resource. There we are. All right. Few minutes left. Anything else anybody wants to bring up before we depart and go our merry summer ways?
Is anyone planning to rally for Vienna? Hoping to rally for Vienna?
Tell us more, Faye.
I wish. I'll be there in spirit somehow.
Yeah, I'd
I
like
could
to
say
go.
that I was in Barcelona in spirit, but I was so bummed that I couldn't go that I was like, I'm not there. I'm here and I'm fine with that.
I'm still bummed out when I saw you at the stage at DrupalCon Atlanta announcing the next DrupalCon, because I really, really thought when you came out to announce it that it was going to be Vancouver.
Oh, it's an ongoing conversation, and I have some information that I'm pretty sure that it's okay if I share it. Part of the reason that we didn't do it in Canada, that we didn't, and I don't know exactly how this works, but Megan, the director of events, was actually able to get a better deal for Chicago than she was for a Canadian venue. So I don't know anything about massive event organization and renting out conference centers. So I don't know how the numbers shake out, but she's pretty rock solid at this. So yeah, but that was one of the challenges that we had to face. So.
Oh, that's, I think, another idea for a topic is planning for a virtual conference. That's come up a few times.
Who's running it?
I mean, I think the at least the way that I would approach it is maybe talk to some of the folks who organize like mid-camp and some of the other things.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we at least have some sort of a financial backbone and organizers who are used to scale. And then put together some idea for a program. Maybe run some surveys within the community to see what interest people have. And just like this meetup, say it is time zone based. And if this pilot test works really well, we're happy to share our model with other people in other time zones to consider doing the same thing. But everybody is welcome if you can come.
Okay, wild idea.
Yeah.
Chad, What if it were DrupalCon?
I'd love.
DrupalCon Global, DrupalCon Virtual.
We've already proven it. We've already done it during the pandemic.
Okay, do you want to make it happen?
I'd love to make it happen. I loved it.
Okay, cool. I'll have your people talk to my people.
Let's
Or you have your people talk to my people.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
but you
so
are
part
my
of-
people talking to your people.
Yeah, so I am in the DrupalCon working group, and one of the things that we are working on is actually making it easier for community to establish DrupalCon in different regions. And so
Yeah.
there hasn't actually been any conversation in that group to date about establishing a regionless or like a DrupalCon cloud or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I don't see why, if the model works and the template works, because like it's like, well, what makes a DrupalCon? This is where we started. We're like, what is and isn't in a DrupalCon? Is trivia night a requirement? Is Dries speaking at a keynote? Is that a requirement? We sort of went through all of the things and created sort of checklist of must-haves, nice-to-haves. And then we talked about the financial models, like how do we make it so that, you know, the Drupal Association can kind of support, but that they aren't having to bankroll entirely, because then, you know, you have like three different organizational groups who all want to do a new DrupalCon, and then it puts the DA in a position where it's like, okay, well, we kind of have to pick, and we don't want to have to pick. And so they tried to kind of structure it in a way that was a little bit easier, and didn't put the DA in a position where they could become a barrier. But so we did all this work, and now it's there. And it's available to Drupal Latin America and DrupalCon Africa. We're talking about. Why not?
Let's talk about the results of it. But I'm firmly of the belief that I feel this way about offices and going in person to an office too. But if you don't have a conference center, if people don't have to travel, if you don't have to pay for catering, if you don't have all of these expenses, I mean, it's more affordable and more accessible in theory. And I think we used Sessionize for DrupalCon Global back in 2020.
I think it was called Hopin or something. Or
yeah.
It was the year after that we started in Sessionize then.
I guess my point is we've already tested it, but we don't necessarily need to do a pilot test of this as a DrupalCon. I think that would be a great goal. I'd love to see that bigger, but we could do a pilot test as a camp or a summit just to see how it goes and scale up from there if there's reluctance. I've heard some naysayers say people just don't pay attention. There's not that social aspect. And I'm like, there are going to be pros and cons no matter what you do. But the flat reality is it's cheaper and it's accessible to a very broad audience. And that needs to be a priority of some sorts. It's not scarcity. It's not either or. It's and place of abundance. We can do this too. So
you know,
I'd like to talk more about it.
Yeah, let's reach out to like some of the organizers in Stanford does do a virtual hybrid event, and I definitely I have spoken to Irina Zaks. I actually interviewed her for the event organizers working group and wrote an article about what worked and what didn't work that I could dig up and link you to. But I wonder if the sort of motivator for doing a DrupalCon Global is going to be making it more accessible. And I wonder if we would be able to reach out to folks like organizers in Ukraine. Sulama's really passionate and like doing a lot of work right now to kind of like get visibility up and build community in Africa, and having experienced organizers like that who are kind of in positions where it's not as easy as folks who are in North America to just be like, oh, we could do DrupalCon Global, but like we could just go to a local community, you know, like it's a little bit different. And so I wonder if by kind of reaching out to some of the phenomenal organizers, in these different regions who have much higher barriers, such as borders that you actually cannot cross, and finding ways to talk to them about like, hey, would this work for you? Could we get you engaged? Like how do we make this? Yeah, I wonder if there's something there to explore, but
Yeah, there has to be. And I think there are a lot of different versions of it. And I don't think it necessarily needs to take one form. We just need to find enough interest to get an audience.
yeah, but who's the audience? Who are the organizers?
Yeah. Yeah. That's basically
Who's
where
it
I'm trying to
for?
start. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's our people's talks.
Okay, that sounds great. If anybody else's people want to talk to our people, it's us. We're the people. We're on Slack. You can DM us.
We're Soylent Green.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna run because I need dinner.
Yeah.
But
Okay, I'm gonna go pet
I
my
will
dog.
cue that one up. Pet your dog for
Cool.
me. Say hello
I will.
to Winston.
I will.
And thank you all for attending. I will put up the notes and the recording and all that jazz afterward as I do. I'll try to give you credit. If I can't, I'll track you down.
Thank you. Hey,
Thanks
Chad
for
Hester, you're
organizing.
doing a really great job.
Thank you. Do I get a sticker?
When I see you next, I will have stickers for sure in my car. I'm ready.
Chad, I'm glad that you didn't die in a horrible propane explosion.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, me
That's also good.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's all not die in propane explosions. I love that
Not
for
today.
all of us.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, all.